My child, hear my voice, for I am the Lord your God. Today I reveal to you something hidden from the eyes of many, something overlooked yet written clearly in my word. You have asked, is salt a spiritual weapon? And I tell you with power and truth, yes, it is. Salt is not just something you sprinkle on food. Salt is not just an earthly element. Salt is a sign of covenant, a shield against corruption, a purifier of what is unclean, and a weapon that works in the unseen realm. When I created the heavens and the earth, I placed purpose in everything. Nothing is without meaning, nothing is without order. I designed the sun to rule the day, the moon to rule the night, the stars to declare seasons, and even the smallest grain of salt to carry eternal significance. Salt may seem ordinary to human eyes, but in my kingdom it is extraordinary. It is chosen. It is holy. Do you remember what I said through my Son when he walked among you? You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. Matthew 5:13. This was not a casual saying. This was a declaration. When I called you salt, I was declaring your identity as a weapon against decay, a force against darkness, and a guardian of truth. Just as salt resists corruption in the natural, so must you resist corruption in the spiritual. Look back to the law I gave to Israel. In Leviticus 2:13, I commanded, every offering of your grain offering you shall season with salt. You shall not allow the salt of the covenant of your God to be lacking from your offering. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. Do you see it, my child? Salt was never missing from the sacrifice, because salt represented permanence, holiness, and my covenant that could never be broken. Where salt was present, there I was present. Where salt was poured, corruption was driven out. Consider Elisha, my prophet. The city of Jericho suffered under cursed waters. The land was barren, lifeless, poisoned. But Elisha took salt in a new bowl, cast it into the spring of water, and said, Thus says the Lord, I have healed this water. From it there shall be no more death or barrenness. 2 Kings 2:21. And it was so. Salt carried my healing, salt carried my covenant, salt carried my power. What was once cursed became blessed. What was once barren became fruitful. What was once deadly became life, giving, all through salt, because salt was a weapon in the hands of my prophet. Do you understand now? The enemy fears what you do not see. He laughs when you think my word is only symbol and not reality. But he trembles when you awaken to the truth that my symbols are also weapons. Salt is a purifier. It drives out filth. Salt is a preserver. It protects what is holy. Salt is a covenant. It binds you to me. Salt is a judgment. It exposes what is false. Even Lot's wife, who disobeyed my command and looked back toward Sodom, became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19:26. That was not accident. It was a message. Salt can preserve life, but salt can also testify against disobedience. My child, listen carefully. Salt is small, but its power is great. The world may despise what is small, but I use what is small to defeat what is mighty. A mustard seed of faith can move mountains, and a grain of salt can shift the unseen realm. Do not despise what is little, for I hide my mysteries in the small things that only the faithful will understand. When you sprinkle salt upon your food, do you think it is just for taste? No. Every time you see salt, you should remember, you are called to preserve, not to decay, to purify, not to corrupt, to stand firm in covenant, not to break it. Every grain of salt whispers, you are chosen, you are set apart, you are a witness of God's truth. But here is the danger, my child. If salt loses its flavor, it becomes useless. If you, as my salt, lose holiness, lose prayer, lose fire, lose obedience, then you are like salt that has lost its taste. It can no longer preserve, it can no longer protect, it can no longer heal. It is thrown out, trampled underfoot, despised by men, ignored by heaven. That is why the enemy works day and night to make you flavorless, to make you compromise, to make you cold, to make you ordinary. But I have not called you to be ordinary. I have called you to be salt, to be fire, to be light, to be my weapon in a decaying world. Do not forget, salt was used in the offerings, salt healed poisoned waters, salt stood as witness, salt marked covenant. Even today, salt remains a spiritual symbol of protection and cleansing. In many lands, my children still place salt at their doorposts, not because the salt itself saves them, but because it reminds them of my word, that corruption shall not enter, that evil shall not prevail, that their house is covered under covenant with the living God. Child, when you rise in the morning, ask yourself, am I salt today? When you walk into the world, ask yourself, do I carry the purity and power of God's salt within me? When temptation comes, declare with faith, I am salt, and corruption cannot consume me. When the enemy whispers lies, answer with truth, I am salt, and I will preserve God's word in my life. For this is not just knowledge, it is warfare. The salt of the covenant is your weapon. I say to you again, salt is not common. Salt is chosen, salt is holy, and I have called you to be the salt of the earth, the salt that purifies nations, the salt that heals brokenness, the salt that resists the spirit of corruption sweeping through this age. Rise, my child, for I have placed my weapon in you. Rise, for the world is decaying, but you are the salt that preserves. Rise, for darkness is spreading, but you are the salt that testifies of my light. My child, understand this mystery and guard it in your heart. Salt is a spiritual weapon, and you, yes you, are the salt of the earth. My child, listen again, for I am not finished. You have heard that you are the salt of the earth, and you have seen how salt has been a weapon of purity, covenant, and preservation. But now I will show you something deeper. Salt is not only a sign, it is a weapon in warfare, a declaration against the forces of darkness that try to invade your life. Remember this, whenever I establish covenant, I also establish protection. In Numbers 18:19, I declared to my priests, it is a covenant of salt forever before the Lord with you and your descendants. Why a covenant of salt? Because salt never decays, salt never spoils, salt endures. It is incorruptible, and so I sealed my promise with a sign of incorruption. Do you see it? Salt was my stamp of permanence, my shield against corruption, my eternal reminder that what I speak cannot be broken. My child, the devil is a master of corruption. He corrupts what is pure. He spoils what is holy. He twists what is good. But salt resists corruption. Salt says, decay, you cannot enter here. Death, you cannot reign here. Darkness, you cannot consume this. That is why I called you salt. Because in a world of decay, you are to resist the corruption of sin. In a culture of compromise, you are to stand unshaken. In an age of lies, you are to preserve truth. Look at the battles of Israel, my chosen people. When they conquered cities, when they tore down strongholds, they would often sow salt upon the ground. Why? To declare that corruption and barrenness would overtake what was wicked, that evil would never rise again in that place. Judges 9:45. Salt became a weapon of judgment against rebellion. It was not just destruction. It was a spiritual seal, a message to the unseen realm. This land is under God's verdict. This ground will not produce rebellion again. So understand, my child, salt has two sides. For the obedient, salt is covenant, protection, and blessing. For the rebellious, salt is judgment, barrenness, and testimony against them. That is why I tell you, Choose this day to be true salt, for salt that loses its flavor cannot be restored. Do you think the enemy ignores this mystery? No, he knows it well. That is why he fears believers who walk in holiness, who keep their covenant pure, who refuse corruption. Because every believer who walks in purity becomes salt, a spiritual weapon that frustrates the plans of darkness. The devil cannot corrupt what is salted with covenant. He cannot spoil what is preserved by holiness. He cannot invade the life of one who has salted their altar with prayer and obedience. But my child, hear me. Many who claim to follow me are losing their saltiness. They compromise with the world. They mingle with darkness. They allow corruption into their eyes, into their ears, into their hearts. And when corruption enters, salt loses its power. This is why families are decaying. This is why churches are powerless. This is why nations fall into sin, because my people have forgotten that they are salt. Yet I am calling you back. I am raising up a remnant in this hour who will reclaim their saltiness, who will stand as a covenant people, who will resist the corruption of this age. I am calling you to live as a testimony in your home, in your workplace, in your city. Every word you speak in truth becomes salt. Every act of purity becomes salt. Every prayer you lift up becomes salt. Every sacrifice you make for my kingdom becomes salt. And that salt, my child, is a weapon. Think of this. When food is salted, corruption cannot grow. In the same way, when a family is salted with prayer, the corruption of the enemy cannot take root. When a church is salted with holiness, the schemes of the devil cannot spread. When a nation is salted with righteousness, evil cannot overthrow it. Salt does not shout loudly, but it works deeply. It penetrates, it preserves, it resists. So must you, my child. You may not see the effect immediately, but your holiness is working like salt in the unseen realm. Consider also the spiritual meaning of Lot's wife. She became a pillar of salt, standing as a testimony of disobedience. My child, understand this well. Salt can bless, but salt can also testify against. When you choose the world over me, when you look back at sin with longing, you risk becoming like salt that no longer preserves life but stands as judgment. Do not be like Lot's wife. Be like Elisha, who used salt to heal. Be like my son's disciples, who carried salt as covenant and truth. And do you know why my son spoke of salt and fire together? In Mark 9:49-50, he said, "For everyone will be seasoned with fire, and every sacrifice will be seasoned with salt. Salt is good, but if the salt loses its flavor, how will you season it? Have salt in yourselves, and have peace with one another." My child, salt and fire work together. Fire purifies, salt preserves. Fire burns away corruption, salt resists its return. Fire cleanses, salt seals. In the same way, my Spirit purifies you, and my covenant preserves you. Without salt, your sacrifice is incomplete. Without fire, your salt has no power. This is why I call you to live in the fire of my Spirit, and the salt of my covenant together. They make you unstoppable. But beware, the world desires flavorless salt. The devil desires powerless believers. He whispers, compromise a little. It does not matter. Everyone is doing it. And slowly, salt loses its flavor. Slowly, your prayers lose fire. Slowly, your holiness loses sharpness. Slowly, you become like the world. And when that happens, your salt is trampled, your witness despised, your weapon blunted. My child, do not allow this. Guard your salt. Guard your covenant. Guard your holiness. For every time you say no to sin, you are resisting corruption. Every time you choose truth over lies, you are preserving purity. Every time you pray with faith, you are spreading salt over your life and your family. And that salt confuses the enemy, frustrates his plans, and preserves your destiny. Do you see now why I chose salt? Do you see now why I commanded Israel to never offer sacrifice without salt? Do you see now why I called you the salt of the earth. Because salt is more than seasoning, it is a sign, it is a shield, it is a weapon. My child, I am calling you to rise as true salt in this generation. The world is rotting, but you can preserve it. The enemy is corrupting, but you can resist. Sin is spreading, but you can hold it back. Do not underestimate who you are in me. You are salt, holy, incorruptible, eternal, powerful. You are salt, chosen to preserve my truth in a decaying age. You are salt, a weapon against corruption, a testimony against sin, a covenant forever sealed with me. So lift up your head, my child. Do not fear the corruption of this age. Do not bow to compromise. Do not let your salt be trampled underfoot. Stand strong, preserve the truth, resist the lies, and remember, as long as you remain in my covenant, you will remain salt, a weapon the enemy cannot defeat. My child, draw closer, for I have more to reveal. You now understand that salt is a covenant, a weapon, and a sign of purity. But hear this truth: salt cannot exist in its power without holiness. Salt that is mixed with filth loses its strength. Salt that is polluted loses its purpose. And so I tell you, if you wish to be my salt in the earth, you must walk in holiness. I am holy, and I have called you to be holy. 1 Peter 1:16. My covenant of salt is not given to those who walk in compromise, but to those who walk in the fear of the Lord. Salt resists corruption, so must you resist the corruption of sin. Salt preserves what is pure, so must you preserve your heart in righteousness. Salt cannot be blended with dirt, or it ceases to be salt. So must you keep yourself unspotted from the world. James 1:27. Consider this carefully. When food is salted, it is preserved from decay. But if the salt itself becomes contaminated, it can no longer protect. It becomes dangerous. My child, this is why many fall. They want the power of salt, but they do not want the purity of holiness. They want the covenant of salt, but they do not want to separate from sin. They want to be a weapon, but they still embrace corruption. Do you not see? The salt loses its flavor when the vessel is unclean. When I called you to be salt, I called you to be different from the world. Salt changes what it touches. It does not take the taste of corruption. It gives the taste of purity. So you, my child, must not blend with the world's sin. You must not carry the same bitterness, the same lust, the same pride. If the world cannot taste my presence in you, then your salt has lost its flavor. Do not think this is a light matter. My son warned, if the salt loses its flavor, it is good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. Matthew 5:13. To lose your saltiness is to lose your witness, to lose your power, to lose your spiritual sharpness. And the enemy desires nothing more than this, to make you tasteless, to make you powerless, to make you ordinary. But I did not call you to be ordinary. I called you to be holy, set apart, preserved in truth. Just as salt is white and pure, so must your heart be cleansed by my Spirit. Just as salt penetrates deeply, so must my word penetrate deeply into your soul. Just as salt preserves against decay, so must you stand as a wall of holiness against the corruption of this age. Do not forget, my child, you cannot fight the enemy with unholy hands. You cannot wield the weapon of salt if your life is compromised. The devil does not fear those who only speak of salt. He fears those who live as salt. He fears those whose hearts are pure, whose prayers are holy, whose lives are untouchable by corruption. A single believer walking in holiness, salted with my covenant, is more dangerous to the kingdom of darkness than 1,000 who live in compromise. Look at the example of Elisha again. When the waters of Jericho were cursed, he did not pour dirt into them, nor did he pour poison. He poured salt. Only something pure could heal something corrupted. Only something holy could transform what was cursed. Do you see? If you want to heal what is broken around you, if you want to see your family restored, your city revived, your land healed, then you must be salt. You must walk in holiness and through you I will heal what is cursed. My child, holiness is not a burden, it is a weapon. Holiness protects you from the snares of the enemy. Holiness guards your soul from decay. Holiness makes your prayers powerful, your witness sharp, your salt effective. The world mocks holiness, but I exalt it. The world despises holiness, but the enemy trembles before it. Holiness is not about rules. Holiness is about power. Holiness is the flavor of true salt. But how, you ask, can you keep your salt pure? How can you walk in holiness in a world filled with corruption? My child, I will show you the way. Guard your heart. Do not allow bitterness, lust, greed, or pride to take root. These are the poisons that corrupt your salt. Instead, fill your heart with my word, for it will purify you. Guard your eyes. What you see shapes your soul. If you feed your eyes with darkness, your salt will be tainted. But if you fix your eyes on what is pure, holy, and eternal, your salt will remain strong. Guard your tongue. Salt purifies speech. Do not let your tongue be used for gossip, lies, or curses. Let your words be seasoned with grace, seasoned with truth, seasoned with salt. Colossians 4:6. For your words have power. They can preserve life or spread corruption. Guard your altar. Keep prayer alive in your life. Prayer is the fire that keeps your salt holy. Without prayer, salt loses its power. But when your altar burns with intercession, your salt spreads through your home, your church, your city. Guard your obedience. Do not compromise with sin, even in small things, for small cracks let corruption seep in. Obedience keeps you salted, keeps you preserved, keeps you untouchable to the enemy. Do you see, my child, holiness is not just for you. It is for everyone around you. Just as salt preserves the food it touches, your holiness preserves your family, your community, your generation. When you walk in holiness, you create an atmosphere where corruption cannot spread. When you walk in holiness, you become a shield for those around you. Your salt does not only protect you, it protects others, and this is why the enemy attacks holiness so fiercely. He knows that if he can corrupt you, he can silence your salt. If he can tempt you into compromise, he can neutralize your weapon. If he can distract you with sin, he can make your prayers powerless. That is why I call you to stand firm, to resist temptation, to cling to holiness. For when you walk in holiness, your salt becomes unstoppable. My child, I did not call you to blend with the world. I called you to preserve it. I did not call you to taste like corruption. I called you to give the world the flavor of heaven. I did not call you to be trampled. I called you to stand as my covenant. So rise and live in holiness. Rise and keep your salt pure. Rise and be the salt that preserves your generation. Do not fear if the world mocks you. Do not fear if they reject you. They rejected my prophets. They mocked my son. They will mock you too. But remember, without salt the world rots. Without holiness the earth decays. And I have placed you here as my salt, my witness, my weapon. So stand strong, my child. Let your life shine with holiness. Let your prayers be salted with purity. Let your words carry the taste of heaven. Let your hands be clean, your heart be pure, your witness be sharp. For this is how you will preserve the earth. This is how you will resist corruption. This is how you will stand as my covenant. Salt and holiness walk together. Without holiness, salt loses its power. But with holiness, salt becomes unstoppable. And I have called you to be holy, to be salt, to be my weapon in this generation. My child, open your heart wider, for I desire to reveal yet another mystery. You have learned that salt is covenant, salt is holiness, and salt is a weapon. But now I say to you, salt is also sacrifice. Without sacrifice, salt has no meaning. Without salt, sacrifice has no power. The two walk together, for every offering that is pure in my sight is salted with covenant. In the days of old, when Israel brought offerings before me, I commanded, with all your offerings you shall offer salt. Leviticus 2:13. Do you see it, my child? Not some offerings, not occasional offerings, but all offerings. Why? Because salt preserved the sacrifice from decay. Salt symbolized permanence, and salt reminded my people that their worship was bound to my everlasting covenant. Without salt, the offering was incomplete. Without salt, the altar was dishonored. Hear this clearly. Your life is your offering. Your prayers are your incense. Your obedience is your sacrifice. But what good is a sacrifice without salt? What good is worship without holiness? What good is service without covenant? Salt seals your offering. Salt sanctifies your worship. Salt makes your prayers endure before my throne. My child, this is why the enemy wants you to worship without salt. He wants your songs without holiness, your prayers without purity, your service without covenant. He knows that without salt, your sacrifice has no permanence. But when your worship is salted with holiness, when your prayers are salted with faith, when your life is salted with obedience, they rise before me as a sweet aroma, and I receive them with joy. Think of it this way: fire consumes the offering, but salt preserves it. Fire makes it ascend, but salt makes it endure. Fire purifies, but salt seals. This is why my son spoke of both fire and salt together. Mark 9:49. He was showing you that true sacrifice requires both. A believer who is salted with holiness and set ablaze with the fire of my Spirit becomes unstoppable, a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to me. Romans 12:1. Consider also how salt marks a person. When you taste food that is salted, you immediately know it is different. In the same way, when a believer is salted with holiness and sacrifice, the world knows they are different. They may not understand why, but they feel the difference. Their presence preserves, their prayers shift atmospheres, their obedience convicts hearts, their holiness resists corruption. This is the mark of a salted believer. But hear me well, my child, to be salted is not easy. Salt burns when applied to a wound. Salt stings when it touches what is broken. And so too, holiness and sacrifice will sting your flesh. They will cause you to say no when the world says yes. They will separate you when others choose compromise. They will cost you friendships, comfort, recognition. Yet I tell you, better to be salted and endure the sting for a moment than to lose your salt and be trampled underfoot forever. Do not be afraid of sacrifice. Do not be afraid of being salted, for every sacrifice you make for my kingdom is eternal. Every prayer you pray, every act of obedience, every seed you sow, every time you say no to sin and yes to holiness, it is salted, and it leaves a mark in heaven. Nothing salted is ever forgotten. Nothing salted is ever wasted. Look to my Son. His sacrifice was salted with obedience, salted with holiness, salted with covenant. He said, "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. He was the perfect salted offering, pure, incorruptible, eternal, and through his salted sacrifice, the whole world was preserved from decay. Without him, corruption would have consumed all creation. But because of him, because his sacrifice was salted, you now have eternal life. So I ask you, my child, will you live as a salted sacrifice? Will you lay down your life, your will, your pride, your desires, and let me season you with holiness? Will you let my Spirit burn like fire in you, and my covenant preserve you like salt? For only then will your life carry eternal weight. Only then will your prayers shape generations. Only then will your witness remain when all else fades. Do not think of sacrifice as loss. Sacrifice salted in holiness becomes eternal gain. Abraham sacrificed his son on the altar, and it became a covenant of blessing for all nations. Hannah sacrificed her son Samuel to my service, and it preserved Israel in a time of corruption. The widow sacrificed her last handful of flour and oil, and I preserved her life with abundance. My child, every salted sacrifice multiplies. Every salted offering becomes a testimony. Every salted life leaves a mark that cannot be erased. And here is the mystery. Salt does not only preserve what is given, it multiplies its impact. A little salt seasons much food. In the same way, a little holiness in one life can preserve an entire family. A little obedience in one heart can shift the destiny of a community. A little sacrifice, salted with covenant, can shake nations. Do not despise your small offerings, for if they are salted, I will multiply them beyond what you imagine. But beware, unsalted sacrifice is dangerous. It looks like worship but lacks power. It looks like service but carries no covenant. It looks like prayer but has no effect. My child, I do not desire offerings without salt. I do not desire songs without holiness, service without obedience, prayers without covenant. I desire salted offerings, pure, incorruptible, preserved in holiness. For those are the offerings that pierce the heavens and shift the earth. Do you now see the mark of the salted believer? Their life is different. Their sacrifice is sealed. Their prayers are powerful. Their witness endures. Even when they die, their salt remains. Their holiness continues to preserve generations. Their obedience continues to bear fruit. Their sacrifice continues to speak. For as it is written, though he is dead, he still speaks. Hebrews 11:4. This is the testimony of salted lives. My child, I am calling you to leave such a mark. Do not live as flavorless salt, wasted and forgotten. Live as salted sacrifice, preserved forever in my covenant. Be the one whose prayers preserve your family. Be the one whose obedience preserves your church. Be the one whose holiness preserves your generation. For this is the call of salt, to live as sacrifice, to preserve what is holy, to resist corruption, to endure forever. So rise, my child, and offer yourself as a salted sacrifice. Do not fear the sting of holiness. Do not fear the cost of obedience. Do not fear the fire of my Spirit. For when your life is salted, you become my covenant, my witness, my weapon in this age. And through you, I will preserve what the enemy seeks to destroy. Through you, I will heal what corruption has touched. Through you, I will mark the earth with my eternal covenant. You are salt. Your life is sacrifice. And together, salt and sacrifice will leave a mark that cannot be erased. My child, now you have walked with me through the mystery of salt. You have seen it as covenant, as weapon, as holiness, as sacrifice. But I must now show you the fullness of what it means. For the salted believer carries not only responsibility in this life, but also reward in the life to come. You are not salt only for a season. You are salt for eternity. Salt does not decay, it endures, and so too, those who walk as salt in this world will endure into eternal life with me. I called you the salt of the earth not just to preserve what is temporary, but to prepare you for what is eternal. Hear my words carefully. A salted believer is one who lives in covenant, one who resists corruption, one who preserves holiness, one who sacrifices with obedience. And to such I say, great is your reward in heaven. For every act of holiness is recorded. Every prayer salted with faith is stored. Every sacrifice salted with covenant is remembered before my throne. Do not think that I forget. Do not think that your salt is wasted. The world may not see your purity, they may mock your holiness, they may despise your sacrifice, but I see, I remember, I preserve, and when you stand before me in eternity, your salt will testify on your behalf. Your holiness will shine as light, your obedience will echo as worship, your sacrifices will rise as fragrance, and I will say to you, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord. My child, let me show you what the enemy never wants you to see. Salt does not only resist corruption on earth, it marks you for eternity. In this age, salt makes you different. In the next age, salt will make you glorious. For those who live as true salt will inherit incorruption. Just as salt resists decay, so will your resurrected body resist decay. Just as salt preserves, so will I preserve you in eternal life. Just as salt marks covenant, so will I mark you with my eternal name. Do you see now the depth of my words when I said, "You are the salt of the earth"? I was not only speaking of your mission, I was speaking of your destiny. Salt is eternal, and so is your calling. But hear this warning again. If salt loses its flavor, it is trampled. If you abandon holiness, if you forsake covenant, if you embrace corruption, then your salt becomes worthless. The world tramples it, the enemy mocks it, heaven does not receive it. My child, do not let this be your story. Guard your salt with all diligence. For only those who endure in holiness, only those who preserve their salt to the end, will receive the crown of life. Consider the mission I have given you. A salted believer is not one who hides away in fear, but one who goes into the world and preserves it. Salt works when it is applied, salt works when it touches, so you must go and touch lives, touch nations, touch generations, carry my holiness into dark places, carry my covenant into broken homes, carry my purity into corrupted systems. Do not fear the world, for though the world is decaying, your salt is stronger. Though sin is spreading, your salt resists. Though darkness is rising, your salt preserves. And when you do this, my child, you are not alone. Every salted believer across the earth becomes part of my great preserving force. Together, you are the salt that holds back corruption, the salt that resists the spirit of Antichrist, the salt that preserves the testimony of Jesus until the end. You are the reason the world has not yet fallen into total decay. You are the reason the earth still tastes the flavor of heaven. You are the reason the gospel still preserves life. This is why the devil attacks you so fiercely. This is why he tempts you, discourages you, distracts you. Because he knows that as long as you remain salted, his plans cannot succeed. He cannot corrupt what is salted. He cannot destroy what is preserved. He cannot erase what is sealed in covenant. That is why he fights you. But that is also why you must fight back, not with your own strength, but with the weapon of salt, with holiness, with obedience, with sacrifice. My child, let me show you the eternal picture. One day, when this world has passed away, when the corruptible has put on incorruption, when the mortal has put on immortality, my salted ones will stand before me in glory. Their garments will shine white as salt. Their lives will testify of covenant. Their sacrifices will echo in eternity. And I will honor them before all creation, saying, "These are my salted ones, the ones who preserved my word, who resisted corruption, who walked in covenant, who lived as holy sacrifices." And what will be their reward? Eternal preservation. They will never decay, never be corrupted, never fall into darkness again. They will reign with me in incorruptible glory. They will inherit the new heavens and the new earth, where nothing defiled shall ever enter. They will sit at my table, seasoned forever with the salt of covenant, tasting joy that never fades, life that never ends, holiness that never loses its flavor. Do you see, my child? The salt you carry now is only the beginning. It is a shadow of the eternal preservation I have prepared for you. Every choice you make now, every act of holiness, every sacrifice, every obedience, every prayer salted with faith is storing up eternal reward. Your salt is shaping your eternity, so do not grow weary. Do not let the world steal your flavor. Do not let the enemy trample your salt. Instead, rise in boldness, stand in holiness, live in covenant. Sacrifice with joy, preserve what is pure, resist what is corrupt. Be the salt that testifies of me, and I promise you, your reward will be eternal, your salt will never lose its flavor, your covenant will never be broken. My child, I have spoken these things so you may understand the shocking truth. Yes, salt is a spiritual weapon. It is covenant. It is holiness. It is sacrifice. It is witness. It is eternal reward. And you are not called to merely carry salt. You are called to be salt. You are my salt in this generation. You are my weapon against corruption. You are my covenant made visible. You are my testimony in the earth. So rise and shine as salt. Season the world with holiness. Preserve your family with prayer. Protect your generation with obedience. Mark your altar with sacrifice. And never forget, though the world may decay, you are preserved. Though sin may spread, you are incorruptible. Though darkness may rise, you are eternal. For I have called you, chosen you, and salted you with my everlasting covenant. You are the salt of the earth. Do not lose your flavor, for your flavor is your holiness, your obedience, your sacrifice, your witness, your eternal destiny. Walk in it, and you will never be trampled. Live in it, and you will shine forever. My child, guard this truth. Carry it with you, for salt is not ordinary. It is spiritual, and you, my chosen one, are my salt, now and forever.